What is happening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Sports Card CEO. Your favorite Sports Card CEO host, Matt Ham, is back in the house after last week being in Disney. And boys, I gotta say, I missed you.
Did he get another one? Oh, Gallo's on his way back. He got it! Santa Maria! Lindor again!
There it is! He did it! A 40-70 season, and a season unlike any other in Major League Baseball history for Ronald Acuna Jr.
There's a drive to right, off the bat of Evan Carter, and what a postseason he is having.
He hits this one hard. He hits it a mile to left. Mike Trout has ripped a home run.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Trout, and you're listening to Sports Card CEO with Kern, Bubba, and Ham.
I missed you
too.
We missed you too. We missed you. What was your favorite Disney character?
My favorite Disney character?
Yeah.
Hello, Mickey the Mouse. I love Pete. He's the pirate guy that was in like the first Mickey. You never see him, but I love Pete, and I love Goofy. Gosh, hi, Eric. I'm brainwashed,
Wow.
boys. I've been in Disney way too long. But we had a great time with the family, and I gotta say, I listened to last week's episode, and Kern, the joke about ham not being kosher was actually really funny. And so
Me?
no, there was a joke. It was like, "Are you ham, Kern, for the weekend?" And he said, "Well, I'm sorry, ham's not kosher." So hopefully I'm kosher for the podcast.
That's what you thought was funny? Of all things, I thought it was
Of all
funny
things.
that Poland thinks that Shohei's not the GOAT.
We got
And
a lot
then
of
I say Atane.
Tane. Well, it definitely was. It was fun for me to sit on the outskirts and watch you boys and be apart from afar. But I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back with our listeners. And as we always do, kicking off the episode with the roundtable. I'll start off today, and then we'll go to Kern and then close with Bubba. The Ham House just got back from a whirlwind 7 days in Disney. For those who have experienced it, it is an experience unlike any other. So we have a lot of recovering to do. One of my boys had a watch on that was tracking his steps. I think we averaged like 10 miles a day for the 3 days we were in the park, but it was good. You know, it's one of those things that's weird. When you're in the middle of it, it's so stressful and so demanding on your energy and emotion. You're just trying to get through the day. But then when you look back and you're on the airplane, you're like, dang it, like, it's gone. Like it already happened. And so I had this moment on the airplane coming back because little Matt and I came back early, and I'm like emotional on the airplane. I'm like, this is the last time I'm going to have my 6-year-old on my shoulders. You know what I mean? Like walking through a theme park. So anyway, a lot of nostalgia, a lot of good memories, good experiences. As far as the card front goes for Ham House, we're pivoting a little bit. We've got some new business endeavors that Ham House Sports is engaging in. We'll unveil that at a later date, but it's been nice to kind of breathe a little bit. Right now, we have the most PC that we've ever had. We don't have anything we really want to sell, so it's just kind of odd. We're kind of stale right now on the Ham House front, just sitting on some nice PC cards and keeping our eyes and ears ready for what's next.
Ham House is anything but stale right now. That's a false statement.
Well,
Very active.
just in a different way.
I actually had this like I don't want to say it was a dream, but it was like a daydream, I guess, of picturing you, Matt, at Disney in the park, running around, walking around, sweating your ass off, and all the kids asking for something, and you just like being like a camp counselor, like, "Come on, kids, gather in, like we're gonna go get snow cones." Like I don't know why I had this just like hilarious.
Did you have a
picture.
video? Did you have a videographer follow me around? Because that's pretty much what it looked like.
Pretty much, yeah.
When Kern
That's
said,
you.
I had a daydream about you, Ham, then it made me think about pre-episode again. But today's pre-episode, if you listeners would have been there, that's kind of what it sounded like.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, Kern, talk to me. What's been going on with my New York connection over the last week and a half since I hadn't seen you?
Well, in the Disney card world, I mean, I'm just a lot of Dumbo, a lot of you know, I've been doing some ripping recently, ripping
Shocker.
some Allen and Ginter actually, which is kind of like a little refreshing because you could buy an entire case of Allen and Ginter hobby for the same price as like a 24 draft super jumbo, right? And like think about how quick that super jumbo is over. And Allen Ginsberg's like, yeah, it's like that. And Allen and Ginsberg's, it's a fun rip and it's long. It takes a while. So it's like enjoyable to not like immediately lose your money, you know, like you could lose your money over the course of like a few hours as opposed to a few minutes.
So if you hit the Cal Ripkins in the A&G, just go ahead and send them to your boy down here. Because I also heard you talking a little trash about my Cal Ripken collection on the last
No,
episode.
it wasn't trash. I was just saying that you were, you know, driving the market.
Driving the market.
But as on the card front, as opposed to ripping, I haven't been doing a ton of buying. I bought another Joshua Gonzalez red. I actually sold a super recently. I sold the Alien Pena super, which was recently acquired. But you know, sometimes when you get an offer that would be irresponsible to not take, you got to take it. It's just part of the game. You know, if you can double up real quick, why not?
Man, this show has made Eric Mandelkern
Seriously,
a much sharper shark out there, folks. He is now a shark.
He's dumping Mets. Like, what is the world come to? He's dumping Mets supers.
There's no emotion to this, right, guys? There's no emotion. I am actually a
machine,
serial killer.
Yeah.
And I have no emotion ties to any cards other than my Three Kings cards of Caminero and Churio, of course.
You're refined, Eric. You're a refined Mandelkern.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah. Other than that, not a whole lot, man. Just trying to close out the year here in the office strong. You know, I got a busy 2 weeks ahead of me, and next week I was summoned for jury duty. So I hope that will not come to fruition, and I don't have to.
So, are you going to film live from the jury duty?
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. You guys like that?
Maybe you'll be on a real serial killer's case. Mr. Shohei Ohtani Bubba Ohtani is, as of tomorrow, that's why I'm wicked loose, boys. My brain, my body, my soul for the last 3.5 years has been tied to the sale of a business. You know, I sold a business, been a part of that journey, and that journey officially ends tomorrow. By the time that this episode airs live, the journey will be done. And the wires will have hit the banks. The papers will be signed.
And the cards will be bought.
And the cards will be bought. But I will officially be done with that. And just really thankful that I was able to experience this. I've learned a lot, learned what not to do, what to do. But I just, I don't know, without being emotional and crying on air, I think this is a time of year anyway to kind of be thankful and think about where you've been. And that's kind of what this week's been for me. I've just really just got my mind. I feel like my mind's clear as it has been in a long time. So feel really good about a lot of stuff on that front. And so that's a huge personal news for me.
So Bubba, real quick. Yeah. And I know this is the business that, you know, you've been a part of for 20 years, 25 years?
Yeah. 18 years old.
Yep. So you had an initial sale of the business, and then you kind of stayed on to help the transition.
Yeah, I can just kind of lay it out. So yeah, I sold the business. Yeah, it's a little over 3.5 years ago. It's March of 20. I guess what year would that be? 2 maybe. March of 22. Sold the business to a private equity firm out of Texas. And when I didn't want to sell my business. My business was booming. I had great employees. I loved what I was doing. They came along and said, look, we don't just want to buy your business and you're done. We want to buy your business. You stay along. You still own part of this business, and we take it nationwide. So I did that. I did that with a good friend of mine who's also in the industry. We combined our businesses at the closing almost 4 years ago, and we've taken that business and grown it 6 times the size it was in less than 4 years. And so it's been, like I said, I've learned a lot. I mean, I come from a small business world, owning my own business. We were very laid back in my boardroom to very stiff boardrooms, right? I've seen all of it now. And I can just say I shout out to my people, to every one of them that believed in me. And that fought for me, that went to battle for me. Huge thank you to any of you guys that are listening. I know some of y'all do listen to the show, and you know, in this world, anybody that owns a business, you can't do it alone. And the second that you think you can, you'll find out you can't. You got to have great people, and I'm thankful to those people today for sure. So, but I know y'all didn't tune in today to listen to that.
Well, congrats, buddy. That's a big deal.
Yeah, thankful for that. Feel very thankful. Like I said, I'm a little bit like buzzed, to be honest, on that front. So on the card side, that signifies tremendous buying, because once a man gets a little more cash flow in the pocket, he's got to do something with it. So no, I will just say there are no bounds. There are no limits to this buyer. Just
I'm
watch
going to
out,
own every
Bowman
card.
buyers. Just watch out.
Every card. Well, that is exciting stuff, Bubba. Well, congrats, man. It's good to be back with you boys diving in here. So as we jump into the episode today, I want to kind of throw a little bit of a nugget news out there. For those who have been listening to the Sports Card CEO, you know we have a love-hate relationship with our friends over at Professional Sports Authentication, PSA. And it's no surprise to those who have listened that these boys on this podcast have called out some of the nonsense that is now getting national attention in the sports card hobby. One Eric Mandelkern specifically a few episodes back said something about the buyback program with PSA and being able to regrade cards. Bubba sharing his thoughts about PSA as well. So, boys, with the news that has now been becoming widespread that PSA is potentially involved in the regrading of buyback cards and the lack of accountability to that process, what say you gentlemen as how this affects the hobby?
Kern, I'll let you start.
I mean, first off, we saw this a mile away. Like it was written. Like if you didn't see it, you're naive, because once you start mixing all this stuff together, it was inevitable. I mean, buybacks, regrading, buybacks by the people that are grading the card and can regrade the card to increase in value. They are driving the market. They are driving the prices in the markets. They can control it all now. So it comes as no surprise to me. As far as it affects the hobby in the future, I mean, look, I haven't thought long and hard about it, but I don't really see how it does affect anything moving forward other than it affects PSA's brand. But at the end of the day, we talk about this all the time, until somebody else steps in, it doesn't matter. And they know that. It does not matter. But people that are going to want to cash out, they're going to cash out anyway. Like what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like where else are you going? I know there's repackers out there and all that, right? But like nobody really makes it as easy as PSA in this system. So what leg do you have to stand on? None. So I think it just leaves a sour taste in people's mouths, but that doesn't really, it's more like, so what? Like, what are you going to do about it? Right?
Well, you know, PSA is 3 letters, PSA, IRS, 3 letters. We cannot like them, but it is what it is, right? I mean, I feel that way. That's what it feels like.
It is
It
what
feels
it is.
like, hey, what are you going to do about it, chief?
Well, precisely though. Like,
Here's
what
the bill.
are you going to do about it? Yeah.
Here's
So
the
I
bill.
don't really see it affecting anything other than people just continuously ripping on PSA. Like I don't know how else it affects anything. I don't know if what they're doing is not illegal. Like, right? Like, I don't know. There's nothing, like, I don't see it changing anything. People who are going to cash out are going to cash out. There's nobody to argue with about your grade. There's nobody to your hands are tied.
Yeah.
Sucks.
One thought before Bubba, let Bubba loose here. I feel
He
like
looks ready to go.
Bubba's like a caged bear right now. He's about to come out. It's interesting to me that PSA waives their tax fees and all that kind of stuff on the vaulted items, which significantly influences or benefits someone who wants to vault their items with PSA and then therefore not have to deal with fees and taxes and all that kind of stuff, right? And it's substantially financially beneficial to do it on high value cards. But what it does give them, it lets them know exactly where the cards are, especially when you get into low pop rare cards. Vault them with us, they said. We'll give you a discount on your taxes, they said. There's that card. We'll buy that back from you, they said. And now we're going to regrade it. And like on a rare Michael Jordan insert, you could take a card that like is a $5,000 as a PSA 9. It might be $20,000 as a PSA 10. So you're talking about significantly affecting the upside. If it's a $100 Joe Burrow, who cares?
They're probably not going to do that, right? But they're looking for those high upside cards.
But on some of these cards, dude, when they know the population, when they know the rarity and scarcity of these cards, they control the market. And they're getting everybody to vault their cards with them so they know where everything is. I'm telling you, bro, I've got a tinfoil hat on this one.
Yeah.
Bubba.
Yeah. I could feel my heart pounding through my chest as y'all spoke about this topic. But you know what you're not going to do today, PSA? You're not going to take my buzz away. You're not going to take my happiness away because I'm on cloud 9. So, but what I am going to do is I'm going to make a very short case to any of our friends that listen, that have friends, or maybe you work for the federal government and you work in the federal government antitrust department, because that's what we have here, my friends. We have, why it's created, the antitrust, is so that things like this, monopolies, can't take place and take over complete industries, which is what PSA, hey, again, it's a free business, it's a private business. They're free to do what they want to do. It's smart to try to grow your business, try to come up with new ideas to make more income streams. But I don't care what anybody says, and I'll fight you this till the end. I don't know if you're one of the commenters on this huge post. I had the comments yesterday. I'd fight you to the end on this. The problem with this is when you take and you're saying that you have a grading scale that is meant from a true professional grader's eye, right? I love PSA because they grade the best. They're the hardest. They're 55-45 on centering. They do it this. They got the best graders. It's the most this and that. Bullshit. Because I'm calling bullshit when you grade somebody's cards and then you send them in that email where you're saying, sorry, by the way, we're sorry. We're just going to go ahead and change some of those 9s to 10s now. That, to me, in that comment alone, they incriminated themselves from that point on anything else they could have done. But when you offer cards, you just flat out gave fresh 9s. And because someone's 9, you're going to give them, they're mad, you're going to give them 10s. There is no, in my opinion, there's no legitimacy to user grading. And if there ever was, it is a game. It's been a game. When you walk up to the National and they say, oh, we're free grading at the National. You know how much freaking money come out of the National grading, choosing the cards that they want to choose, that they want to be in a PSA slab. I've taken cards that were BGS 8.5s and got 10s because they wanted that card in a 10 and they wanted to charge me 15 grand. They're crooks. It's bottom line. I have nothing else to say about it. I'm done.
Fair enough. Well, I think everybody knows where the sports card CEOs stand on this, and it's super interesting. And again, we try to stay out of the hobby drama on the pod here, but this is something that you can't kind of turn a blind eye to. I think we all have to be really aware of it. And, the episode today, we're going to focus on running a business, and we're going to focus on, a real approach to the sports card business as 3 different individuals of how we run our businesses within the sports card industry. Now, that said, PSA is the player. So if you're in the industry, you're going to have to learn how to play with the player. It just is what it is. And that's kind of where we are. I'm thinking about the movie Scarface right now when Tony Montana, he goes, hey, Frank, he goes to Frank and he's like, I'm replacing you. He's like, you don't go over my head. And he's like, I just did. It's like, you have to understand. I mean, this is the Wild West, but you have to understand who the players are, how the game is played, and then you have to build your business around kind of those rules of engagement.
Guys, that's what we've talked about on previous episodes, and then we're going to say it again. Who creates the rules for this industry? The only way that any of this Probstein, PSA, you know how any of this means anything? That the industry as a whole says, you know what, we're not going to continue to do this. But as long as everybody continues to slave out their money to PSA and they continue to be nothing changes. As long as people continue to list with Probstein and buy from Probstein, nothing changes. We just all continue to bitch and complain and mope, similar to a lot of people do with our government at times. And it's no different. It's no different in this situation. As a hobby, if we want to change, number one, somebody's got to step up. We got to have a better option. Right now, there's not a better option. But if there was, I think it'd be really interesting to see if a new option came available, how that would be responded to. Because I think people are finally starting to open their eyes, that they didn't have them open previously, that this is going on.
Yeah, for sure. All right, boys. Well, we'll close the chapter on the conversation there and dive into kind of this idea. It's the end of the year. Kern, you mentioned it about your own business, right? Bubba, you're wrapping up the sale of your business. We're closing out the year at Airly Oak Insurance Group. If you're a business owner, the December timeframe is always that timeframe where you're trying to wrap your year up, get everything, on the books for the current year. And then you're starting to kind of strategize and plan for 2026. What does it look like? And, one of the things I think we do well with Sports Card CEO and why our listeners like us is we provide a real approach to the business side of the hobby from 3 guys who have been in business with a variety of different perspectives. And that is what our listeners like. And so we wanted to give them a little bit of that is how we approach our businesses, kind of closing the year out into next year. So that being said, we've compiled a bunch of listener questions, boys, and we're just going to kind of go through this top to bottom and start addressing some kind of questions here. So we get this question all the time. It's about insurance. When you have valuable collections, how do you handle insuring those collections? Bubba has a story I know you want to share As someone in the insurance industry, I understand the importance of insurance. You're trading off a small amount of money to cover a large type of risk. For us at Ham House Sports, we have a policy in place that covers us for lost or damaged goods. We've acted on it one time. We lost a package through UPS one time. It got damaged in transit. It was about a $2,700 card. We pay about $500 a year for our policy. In that specific case, they paid us 70% of the market value of that card minus our deductible. So we ended up getting about $1,500 back. At this juncture, that's the only time we've used.
Who do you use?
It's through a group out of Ohio as a broker, but the company they put it through is a company called Markel, which is a national insurer.
So you're using Finkelmeyer?
Yeah. Yep. That's the agency, which
That's
is
who I use as
interesting.
well.
I actually have the opportunity to write my own policy, but again, it's kind of a niche industry that I don't particularly deal with in our day to day. So I just kind of said that's not something that I want to focus on. But yeah, that's the agency we use through a policy called Markel. But again, one little side note for those who have collections at your house, your card collection is not a part of your personal homeowner's insurance policy, period. If your house burns down in a house fire, your homeowner's insurance company is not going to pay you anything for those collectibles. So you have to have a specific collectibles or art policy to have any coverage on those items. So that's all I have on it. Bubba.
Yeah. First, Kern, what do you have in place? Just for the listeners know what we all have kind of in place. What do you have in place as far as insurance on cards, or do you have insurance?
I have insurance, yes. It's through Collect Insure. I remember when I was looking for it, I had to look long and hard. I mean, I first looked under, the my homeowner's policy and see if it could be under, scheduled under the scheduled, the personal items, the jewelry and stuff like that, but they just wouldn't cover it. And so I was reaching out to larger insurance companies, and then somebody had recommended Collect Insure. And I mean, they've been great. It's I have to schedule certain items, anything over $25,000. So I'm constantly, but I have an entire policy for a big number, but I constantly am updating the policy as cards sell, as cards come in, as values change. I try to update it as much as possible. The only thing that with my policy, for whatever reason, that bothers me is I typically ship UPS for the most part, because my business account is through UPS and it doesn't cover UPS.
Interesting.
Yeah, it only covers FedEx and USPS, and I'll never ship USPS, unless it's a part through eBay that's a low dollar amount. But it bothers me because I have to, I think one thing that people, don't really realize, I think when you have insurance and, just because the policy covers it, especially with a bigger card, you got to play it extra safe. You got to video yourself packing that card up, going into it, take a picture of the label, just be extra safe, have all that backup, because I've been there before. You have to do that. Anytime you ship a card to Fanatics Collect to sell or whatever, they'll provide the label. They need all that information. They need a video of yourself, of you packing it up, of it packed up, everything. Because the last thing you want to do is have a problem on your hands and not be able to cash in on the reason why you got the insurance in the first place, and protect yourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to start here. And I think the reason we're talking about this in the first place is a lot of people just don't know where to start. So one of the main differences in my policy, I also use Finkelmeyer out of Ohio, and that's Markel. And the difference between our policy and it sounds like Kern's is there is no limitation on UPS. It's UPS or FedEx. I have to have signature confirmation, which is what I would do anyway, but no USPS, which I don't use USPS anyway. So that, and another main difference is there's no scheduling of items with my policy. It's just a blanket coverage. And unfortunately, I did have to use mine for a very large situation in the neighborhood of around $150,000 or so in loss of theft that happened at the national. Ham, you were actually there for that experience, unfortunately, and so was able to work through that with Markel, and they were phenomenal in resolving it. I mean, I had a police report, I went through it, they did their due diligence, and they handled it, and they didn't drop me as a policy, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, to have that kind of claim and not drop me, there's been some things since then. They've said, we need this and we need this, and that's been fine. But my biggest reason in mentioning insurance in the first place to anybody that doesn't have it or has thought about it is when you go to ship stuff. You're not getting it necessarily for yourself and losing thing. Maybe you are because you're worried about a house fire or this or that, but you don't know who you can trust. You could ship it to a guy. I saw a guy the other day receive a card, and the guy that sent it never even had a card in it. And all of a sudden, you buy XYZ card and there's no card, you're out. You're done. You're screwed. So that'll go into another topic we're talking about later of how you pay when you go to pay. But in this industry, I don't think you can be too careful with having those types of things in place, making sure that you're protecting yourself and your assets because, would you have your stocks or your money in a place where you had no repercussions? Would you put your money in a bank that didn't have FDIC insurance? Probably not, right? If you had, $100,000 in this bank and the bank goes under and you're out, would you be okay with that? Most people would say no. And so I think it's the same thing with cards. I think a lot of people just take a lot of chances here. It only takes one or two things going the wrong way and you're hurting pretty bad.
Well, that's the thing too, is you get people starting out in the hobby and they move like we did from a $50 card to a $100 card to a $500 card. And then all of a sudden you take the risk and you buy a $1,500 card. If something goes wrong with that, and that's a third of your overall assets, you just lost a third of your assets in one bad transaction. You know what I mean? And so at what point in time do you start to implement this kind of stuff? And we started to do it, when our collection got into that $20,000 range. And fortunately, we got to that point without any claims. And again, if you're dealing in cards that are $100, $200, $300, it's really not worth it because your deductible is probably going to be $500 on a policy like this. But when you start dealing in significant 4, 5, 6-figure cards, you absolutely should be wise and make sure that you have this as a part of your overall business plan. So again, little thoughts on insurance there, boys. I think that's super helpful.
Before we move to the next topic, I do want to mention this. If you're new to the space, you're like, man, I don't know if I'm ready to go ahead and get insurance. I don't know if that I'm ready, but I've got some concerns. Another little hack, and we didn't have this on our topic to mention today, but I utilize it still today, even though I don't have to, is using the vaults. Having a relationship with the vaults, not only do you have the insurance protection now when you ship out of that to somebody else because they're shipping it and you're under their shipping insurance, but you also have the protection of when they're storing it for you as well through that vault, but you also are avoiding taxes when you are buying it. And that's something I wanted to mention, the use of vaults, because I don't think a lot of people utilize those maybe the way that they should. There's a lot of bad things about a vault too. Timing sometimes when you really need a card and this and that. So you need to have that relationship be on point. But vaults can be a very, very, very handy way to limit your exposure and having a bunch of cards sitting in a shoebox under your bed. I know they get a lot of hate, but if you use a vault correctly, it can be a real good tool for people. Just do your homework on who you're going to use, how you're going to use it, and be strategic with it. But I mean, a vault can really be a good tool for somebody that uses it correctly and an alternative to insurance at the beginning.
Yeah, 100%. All right, next question, next topic here. It was about how do you kind of market your personal collection? Once you get cards, how do you put those cards kind of out there and market your collection? Kern, you've done a really good job of this, of creating kind of an online brand in Kern's Cards, and I think you're going to be one to dive right in and talk about this.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their different style of marketing, either cards or themselves. Like all three of us have a completely different strategy, and, there's no right or wrong here, right? Like, I think it all depends on what space you're in, what sport you're buying, what kind of cards you're buying, how big are they? My strategy, I can speak for myself. Obviously, I buy a lot of low numbered cards and a lot of one-of-ones. So my strategy from the get-go was not necessarily to market them to sell them, to help sell them, but it was really to highlight them in Instagram so I can buy them easier. And if that doesn't make sense, it's simple in that these cards, when they're hit, like, you have to seek them out, right? Like we talked about it before, like you can't just get everything you want by just throwing money. It might be gone already, right? Like there's people jumping on that stuff. So it's a lot of work to seek those out. And I want them to seek me out, right? And that was the reason for putting my cards out there, where I also understand the idea of, kind of being secretive and holding some things back, right? And not marketing them. But in turn, by putting that stuff out there and having, like, it has worked and people come to me, but it obviously helps of people knowing where something is, right? Like, it doesn't mean you need to post something every day on your story saying it's for sale, right? But like, I like putting it out there for knowing where it is. Even if I'm not looking to sell a card, I might flash it on eBay for a 2-day period just so somebody knows where it is that might not have Instagram, right? Like, if you market it in a way on, let's say, Instagram, that's not that's in an interesting way. Like, I try to do it with, like, in a cool way, with highlights or with something different other than just like a still shot, right? Like, make it intriguing. Like, a card is a is a still piece that's like can be a little boring to some people. It's
Yeah.
not like a game worn jersey, right? Like, where it has an entire story behind it or a moment behind it, right? So you have to, like, with a card, you kind of have the story that you could tell is from, when it's hit to acquiring it to grading it, right? And like, you put all that together. Like, to me, that's how you market a card.
Yeah.
If it's at all possible. But there's no right or wrong here. It's just you have to put it out there, and I think you have to put it out there in somewhat of a creative way.
So my
Exactly.
favorite way that you do it, Kern, like I love when you post your cards in front of your Lamborghini. Like that's what I love. It's really catchy, and like when you flash them at the courtside at the
Yeah.
Knicks games, like that to me is what really separates.
I thought you were going to say when I line them up on the jet.
Yeah, on your jet, right? There's the jet post as well. It's the jet and the Lambo. Yeah. So again, because we're poking fun at some of our friends on Instagram who like to do those types of things, but
Yeah, but also to know, like, this is a side note, but it is kind of goes with that of how you market your cards. Like, how you market yourself is just as
yeah,
big as how you market your cards. Like, and a lot of people in this hobby hide themselves, and they're just a logo, of a Bowman logo or of whatever. And like, look, like, this is not I'm not hating on it, right? Like, you guys, Ham House, have your
you're not
logo,
hating
right?
on
But like,
Bubba right now.
but no, 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 no. But like, you guys put your face out there. My point is that, like, you put your
Yeah.
face out there and you're a human being. People buy from who they like and who they trust, and they're
Make
more
it real,
likely
yeah.
to like you and trust you if you show your face, right? Like, there's a lot of people that just you have no idea who they are, what they look like, and that's fine. You want to remain private, that's fine, right? But I think a lot of that has to do with selling your cards is people are more open to dealing with you if you show your face and you show you're a human being, and
Yeah, 100%.
like, it's just common sense.
I just pulled this up for a funny. So when we were in New York this year, I actually took a picture because we flew in with our cards in hand, and we went to Yankee Stadium, and I've got a picture of our 53 mantle at Yankee Stadium. Like that was a cool
That's
thing, and that's just an
Yeah.
example of like, kind of drip that
It's
out there.
different.
But what you say?
It's different. Like, it's,
Yeah, it's it. Yeah, Bubba, what about you? What about you? How do you market your cards?
Well, I mean, I think that's where, I think, the way Kern's done it is extremely smart. It fits Kern. Kern's extremely active in the space. Like I mentioned before, people see it as coming easy. It's not easy. What Kern has done, the work, the money, the time, the effort he puts in it is a lot. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. It takes time. It takes commitment. Honestly, from my standpoint, I don't know how to say this in a non-arrogant way, but I'm going to say it how the best way I know how. I just didn't want to deal with the people. I dealt with that day to day in my business and dealing with people. And there's a lot of people in the space that waste your time and are unprofessional. I think for me, I kind of got into it one day. I was like, I just want to show people a little bit of what cards I have. A little bit when I first got into it, because I had some really, really big cards. I think since then, the way Instagram has kind of worked for me is I don't go out there and market myself at all. I've kept myself I think, and it's kind of had, honestly, maybe prior to the show, I had a little mystique to who is this guy that's buying all this stuff? Who is this person? Now, the problem with being in the last year, being on the show and having a lot more recognition of who the Bowman farmer is, at times can be problematic. People in your stuff and making it harder. It's made it harder to buy, honestly, at times. It's made it harder to sell. And Kern, you probably deal with a little bit of that at times as well. I think there's a good and there's a bad from being out there in the general public eye. I've seen the good of it. I've seen the bad of it, but my strategy all along was never really a strategy. It was just that, hey, I want to buy these cards. I knew that I do not like selling. I don't mind buying on Instagram. I really don't, because it's easier to buy generally. I do not like selling on this. I don't like dealing with it. I've done some story sales before. It's a ton of questions, and it's like a full-time job to get back to these people trying to sell online. It just wasn't for me. I would rather I went to consigners and said, I'm going to sell a lot. Give me your best rate. I'm going to be one of your best customers. Give me your most lenient terms. And I'm willing to give up 5%. I'm willing to give up 4.2% of the sale because they're listing it, they're shipping it, they're doing everything. And for me, that was better. I felt like I could get 100% of what the current value was on one of those platforms, and then it's out of my hands. And so that's been my strategy. It wasn't really trying to hide, nonetheless, other than the fact that I really just didn't want to deal with flakes. What has been positive since now, you kind of get a community of people that people that you want to watch, people that you want to communicate with. That is the positive of, in my opinion, of an Instagram or socials. You meet a lot of great people. I met a lot of great listeners, a lot of great people in the space that I enjoy to communicate with. If I hadn't have had an Instagram, if I hadn't put myself out there, I wouldn't have met those people. And so I feel like it's just there's both sides of it, but if you put yourself out there, and Kern, I don't want to get into your own business here, but there's the other side where you deal with the crazies in this space. And Kern, you've had to unfortunately deal with some of those. It just, there's a positive and a negative of all of it, in my opinion. You got to choose what fits you best and what you're trying to.
Yeah, I want to add one little thought on this. We'll move on to the next thing. So ours is super interesting because my choice has been to market Little Matt. Let's just be honest. I've marketed my son. Huh?
You pimping out your son.
And he tells me all the time. He's like, "You're pimping me out." He doesn't say it like that, but he's like, we've had serious conversations where he says he feels sometimes like I'm using him. I'm like, dude, I'm not trying to use you, but like, let's be wise in this whole thing. Like, you have a unique personality, you have a unique gift set. You are the face of Ham House Sports. Nobody cares about Big Man, what I have to say about Cal Ripken. They want to see you interviewing Gary Vee or, Mike Mahan, or they want to see you, doing whatever you do. So that's kind of been this thing. And that wasn't how we started out. It just became that way. I started to recognize, like, okay, this kid's got a gift for this thing. He's got a gift for being on camera. And that started when he was 5 years old. He loved to talk about college football. So I put him on camera on Saturday mornings as a 5-year-old talking about the college football games of the day. And so he had years and years in the pipeline before we ever started Ham House Sports. And he was very natural to kind of come to camera. So for us, it's been more about marketing the brand of Little Matt and Ham House Sports. And that's been great for us. He won the Entrepreneur of the Year for home-based businesses for our local Wilmington Business Journal. He's had ridiculous opportunities. He's done very well. But the thing that I would say is when you market yourself and your love for cards, people are going to bring you stuff. We get more local people who go, "Hey man, I got stuff in my closet. Will you take a look at it?" Right?
Mhm.
Now, I've got a box of 1988 Topps right now that's a brick that won't move anywhere. But we also had 2 Michael Jordan rookies that came in the door. So when you market yourself on your local personal social media pages, you start to get the people around you go, "Oh," and it opens the door to opportunity. So if you're not marketing yourself or your cards, I think it's a valid thing to consider as you move into 26.
Well, first off, Matt, you do bring a lot more value to Ham House than that. I think people do want to know Big Matt. We see it with our own listeners on the show. I know, to your point, when I first met you guys, the reason I even felt comfortable to kind of get to know you guys is that it was a father-son. I could see that. You were easily approachable. You were easily approachable. You kind of shared similar things to me. That's how our friendship kind of sparked, was through Instagram. And similar to Kern, I kind of knew who Kern was, but Kern's ability to network and have other people is how he and I met. It's through another network of people that said, "Oh, you and Kern are doing some stuff kind of similar." So my point being to anybody that's thinking about this is, if you're thinking about taking that leap, there's more than one way to skin this cat, and we all met though through Instagram, essentially, at some point or another, whether it was through a connection of Instagram or through Instagram itself. And, I spend a little bit of time on Instagram every day, and it's not a tremendous amount of time. And generally it's just to kind of sometimes even see, hey, what are these guys doing? It's not, I don't do a ton of transactions buying and selling. I just don't. Most of the stuff I'm looking for, unfortunately, is usually not there. I have to dig for it a little bit if I want to find it.
Yeah. All right, moving on, fellas here. And this is good stuff. I hope our listeners are appreciating this. It's kind of just talking the guts of the business and how we approach it. The next one is pricing and valuation. And we're going to deal with this on two fronts. Like there's the accounting side of the business, and then there's also the valuation of your assets. And I'm going to give a little snapshot here for us to start it off. I tend to be the analytical nerd of our house, and little Matt is the one who runs. So I had to put a spreadsheet in place behind him to track what we bought, what we paid, what it was, when we sold it, what our profit was, whatever. So I have a spreadsheet that is a running thing on the year, and I color coordinated each month. So I can go back and look, this was January, this was February, this was March, this is total sales, this is, net profit, whatever. And I have all that for year end for tax purposes and accounting purposes. And so that's how we do it on the accounting side. Just recently, we've learned about assets like Card Ladder. PSA has a feature, Alt has a feature where you can enter your cards in to these apps, and it shows you a real-time market valuation on that card. And that is incredibly helpful. The problem for us is we move in and out of cards so quickly that you have to update that thing so often that it becomes a bit cumbersome. So again, there's a lot of resources out there, but that's just kind of how we do it. I also wish I could turn this thing around and show you guys. I have a whiteboard in our card room over the garage that is this like 8-foot whiteboard. And it has Ham House PC, Little Matt's PC, top targets, cash accounts, and it has everything on like a whiteboard with like expo markers. And I literally update that thing like twice a week, and it's cathartic for me. Like I love coming up here and just kind of like doodling or whatever. So I can give you a real-time snapshot on the whiteboard in the card room. And that's kind of a little thing that Matthew and I, it's like our little boardroom meeting. So that's something we do every week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have a feeling you guys do it a lot, and the Mets do it a lot cleaner than myself. I mean, as far as like my, you know, profit cost basis, like I keep a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, of the larger cards, I would say, of what my cost basis is, and what it's sold for and what my profit is. So like I can know, I can keep track of what my profit is for the year, along with the inventory of cards over a certain amount. So I know how much in inventory I have. I mean, I typically don't keep track of anything like, if I'm buying under, $1,000 or 2,000 really. But anything above that, as far as like the value of my stuff, I don't really enter it into Card Ladder, although I know that stuff is available to you. Just because like a lot of the stuff, my higher end stuff are one-on-ones and they're supers and stuff. So like there really is no Card Ladder value assigned to it. And if there was, I don't really believe it, because, it's like, how are you figuring that out? Right. Like they're just not doing, there's rarely a Card Ladder value assigned. So like
Kern's staring at Card Ladder going, "You're a liar."
yeah, I just it's rarely assigned. So I really just base it off of, what I think the value is or where I want to sell it at. But I do keep track of what the cost basis is and what my profit is and how much inventory I have in dollars.
Well, I can give you guys the roadmap of what not to do, okay? Because that's been me most of my card career on how to inventory this stuff. And I can tell you this, don't buy 5,000 cards and don't inventory any of it, okay? Because you won't like the result, all right? That was me when I first got into cards. I've since then got a little smarter. I know that I'm not organized, and my friend Kern over here, by the way, is not either. Very creative guys, we are, but we are not the most organized fellers in the room when it comes to this type of stuff. So I have hired somebody that works for me in this space, what I do, and his job is to keep me organized. He handles shipping, because if I sent you a package that came from the Bowman farmer, it would be it would be a very pretty picture. Yeah, it'd be like that. So anyway, I mean, but what we kind of track, and I recommend that you do this however you handle your cards, but it's the status. When you get over having just a handful of cards, sometimes that's one of the things we've done, that I can get on there anytime and I can see the status and know where cards are. It's in grading, it's at vault, it's here, it's there. That's been helpful to me, having that. not having that in the past, itemizing. I think a lot of times when people too, when they're buying cards, they look at what they spent, but you do have other costs. You need to look and say, okay, what did I put in this engraving? What did I have in selling cost here? What did I have in shipping to get down to that net? And so all of our stuff now kind of accounts for that all the way down the line. And then what I do is the guy that works for me on a monthly basis, it all flows to anything that was moved goes to a monthly breakdown. And I know exactly what was sold. And then the next month we kind of do a meeting a couple times a month. And then at the end of the month, we do one big meeting. And then we say, what are we targeting next month? This is what we did. This is what we did well. This is what we didn't do well. This is what we're going to do next month. And so since doing that, my life is so much better in buying cards and doing cards that way. Again, when it goes to where if I'm buying at Bowman Farmer PC, dude, there's not much organization to that, and that's not pretty. So that's my recommendation.
Not when you have
is
Ronald
have some
Acuna
sort of system.
oranges and stuff in your
What'd you say,
desk
Kern?
drawer. Not when you have Ronald Acuna oranges stuffed in your desk drawer. But
Dude, I got Ronald Acuna 10 oranges stuffed in like my sock drawer here at the house. I mean, it's
yeah. There you go.
I like to wake up and make eye contact with Ronald Acuna.
I love it. I love it. All right, boys, moving on. Next topic here. So let's talk a little bit about, cards as an alternate asset class. And let's talk about cards as part of the financial portfolio. Again, when you play golf as a hobby, you spend money on clubs and balls and tee times and, all the stuff. And you go and you play golf. Maybe you have a club membership or whatever, but you're not making money doing that. Most people aren't. Maybe you gamble on the course, you make a little bit back. But I mean, most people that have a hobby are not making money at their hobby. That's why we call it a hobby, but it's a business because we're making money doing it. It's buying and selling, all that kind of stuff. But it's a hobby too because it's fun. So when you look at this as an overall investment strategy, part of your portfolio, how do you guys approach that within the context of, management of assets?
Bubba?
Yeah, I'll start here. I don't look at it as an asset at all. I look at it now as a cash flow producing machine. The only assets that I feel like I do own would be stuff that Kern and I are really buying together that are more longer holds. That is more like an asset. If we're buying a huge 101 and spending a lot of money on it, that's an asset to me. I'm looking at that more like a stock and saying, hey, Kern and I are in this stock. Some of them are high risk, high reward stock. Some of them I don't feel are so high risk, but they maybe don't have the same reward. Some of them I feel like are IBM type superfractors, you can't lose type thing, right? I mean, obviously you can. But that's how I look at that. The stuff that I'm doing right now, though, in my day-to-day Bowman Farmer card business is 100% like a distribution. I like to look at it as I'm buying this stock. It has an ends to a mean. It's going to get sold, and I'm going to get distributed every month to reap the rewards of what was sold and bought. That is 100% how I look at it. It's a 90 to 120 day window. If I could sell it in 2 days and make that profit, I'm ecstatic. If it takes me 120, I'm like, dang, I could have done and flipped that money 5 other times through. I didn't used to think that way. My boy, Matthew Ham over here on the left has changed my brain, the way that I think about that. And to me, I think it's the safest way to play this game. I'm not telling you again, I've shared publicly my mistakes of selling too early on Bobby Witt, PCA, and all these other guys. But there's a lot of other stories I could tell you where I held guys too long and I lost my ass. Okay. There's less happy stories for holding people too long than holding them too long, in my opinion. And so I've become a lot more systematic. I don't look at it as an asset unless it's huge, and it's something I can look at as an asset. Everything else to me, I have no emotion to. I'm like the Terminator, like Kern the Terminator, and I want in and I want out. I want to get in, I want to make it, I want to make money, and I want to move on.
And
Get
buy
in,
your
get
sports
off, get out.
cards.
Yes.
Buy your cards and sell your cards. The Terminator.
Kern, do you see it the same way now, or I'm just curious. Do you see it the same way now, or do you see it a little different?
I mean, I'm getting there. Like I see closer to that way now,
Yeah.
Like I completely agree with the way I see it with those longer term, those bigger cards, those longer term holds. I see that as an asset for sure. Like any one of one, bigger, larger dollar amount one of one. But overall, like I never really thought about it as like this is an asset to me. It's kind of just I have in terms of like I can liquidate and become liquid for the most part whatever you need. So you kind of have to think about it as an asset, but as an asset class of its own, like it's not really the way I think about it. I'm just kind of having fun here. Like to me, the investment in doing this is really You mentioned the country club, right? Like to me, the investment is the other relationships and the networks. Got back into the hobby, like the opportunities that have come up because of me being in the hobby that, wasn't really planned. Being an investor and collect media, a couple other things that can't discuss yet, but it's been like it's worth it, like joining a country club, a golf club, even if you don't play a ton of golf and it's a $200,000 a year investment, right? Like it might be worth it because of the people that you meet there and the opportunities that it could lead to. And that's kind of like
Yeah,
the way
for
I'm
sure.
thinking about it while I'm having fun buying and selling cards, So that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, and
That's
I
an
think
interesting
that
concept.
to
So,
Kern's point, I think you hit a great point. Like I got to say this because my dad's told me this for so many years. My dad races race cars. Okay. My dad's 77. He's still racing cars. And he's told me this so many times. He said, do you know how many guys racing has gobbled up and spit out? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, dude, rich guys get into the sport all the time. They got a lot of money. They want to get into a front race a car, think it's cool. And then they realize they're spending so much money, get into racing. And my dad's always just done it very, very conservatively, very cheap car, worked on it himself, done it the old school way. Most of these guys have pit crew teams. They've got the whole thing, brand new haulers, 500 grand. And he said, what happens is eventually a couple of years later, you don't see those guys anymore. And he's like, well, why not? He's like, because they look at themselves in the mirror and they go, am I having $1 million a year worth of fun? I'm spending $1 million a year, $500,000 a year. Am I having that much fun? To me, that's the coolest thing about the card market is making money is fun. When you're buying cards and you're right and you're selling them and you're making money is fun. I can promise you that it's not fun to go to the country club and spend that $200,000 and get your brains beat in every single time you're there and have your wife chewing your ass out on the way home. Okay. And cards are no different. You want to be successful. You want to do well. Yeah. We might all get into some breaks and lose some money and gamble a little bit and say, whatever. That's just kind of part of the fun. But if you're going to be in this long term, you're going to be in this beyond 6 months or a year, you got to learn how to make money because I almost left this industry pretty quick because it was chewing me up and spitting my ass right back out. And I had to learn to adjust and change. And I think, Kern, you're the same way. I mean, if you're going to be in this thing long term, you've got to learn to win.
So, guys, I have two thoughts here. One is, Gary, you've made it well known on the podcast that you love land. Land is your asset class. You like buying land, real estate. You like that. Kern, I know they don't make a lot of land in New York City. So when you talk about asset classes and stuff like that, like how do you think about it? Is it investing in businesses? Is it stocks or whatever? Like how do you look at just investment in general? Like what's your thought process?
I mean, real estate, New York City, real estate.
Okay.
Yeah. Guess stocks, but really real estate and, individual investments.
Yeah.
What's your
I had an
percentage?
interesting
I'm
conversation.
just curious percentage for Ham, Kern, and myself. Cards to real estate, privately owned businesses to stocks. Just quickly. Let's just roll this real quickly. What's the breakdown? I'll start if you want.
Less than 10.
Less than 10.
Well, less than 10.
Cards?
Yes.
What's your highest? Mostly stocks? 1Ks? What's the
real estate asset?
Real estate
Okay. Assets.
Okay.
Number one holding.
Kern?
Yeah.
I mean, less than 10% cards. I'd say mostly stocks.
Yeah. Okay. I'm less than 10% cards. I was significantly into independent business, like how much value there was in my business. Obviously, a lot of that's now being pulled back out as it's been sold, my net worth in that. So now I'm probably, let's call it 65% in stocks and investments like that. And then the rest, the other balance of it, 25 to 30 is in real estate and land and stuff like that, commercial real estate.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had an opportunity to sit down with a gentleman here locally who is, again, one of the most recognized CEOs in the country and significant innovator in this space, in the tech space. And I was talking to him just as a friend, just talking a little bit about things. And he started talking to me about investing in businesses. And he was telling me about specific businesses that he put money into. And he was talking about the return on his capital in the business. And it was crazy. It was like, startup companies. I mean, I know there's a ton of risk there, but it was like 14, 15x upside, on these businesses. And it was just like really fascinating to hear about his approach to that. And with us in cards, it's like, okay, you double up on a card, you've won huge. You make 40%, 50%, you've done really well. And I think when you start thinking about stocks, if you can get 7, 8, 10, 12%, you're happy, So when you start thinking about the diversification of your assets and all that type of stuff, like love that conversation. And that's where I personally want to grow, is looking at my own net worth now and how do I project it out, legacy stuff. We can get into that later. I was just curious. So thank you guys for sharing on that front. The other thing I want to say about this whole idea of your overall portfolio, so many people get into the card business hobby and they just go on Whatnot and they just buy and they just rip wax and they don't know what they're doing and they're getting into repacks and they're getting junk and they're spending thousands of dollars with no return and they don't understand how to capitalize on it and they get burnt and they get out of the hobby. And I think that that's a dangerous kind of game to play. And that's what leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And Gary, you even said it. It was something that you almost experienced previously. I think part of my heartbeat for this show is this educational piece to say, hey, listen, like you can still have fun in the hobby and do it and make money doing it. So there's a lot of people who have never even considered this strategy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're looking at it. They're looking at it like a country club membership. I'm going to spend $1,500 here a month just for the fun of it, but you can actually capitalize.
I think the hobby's grown in so many different ways, vertically, horizontally, right? Like where there's so many different avenues. Like there's people that consider breaking on Whatnot the hobby. Like that's the hobby to them. It being in breaks with the community and spending money with a specific breaker and then reselling the card. So we're holding on to them and not doing anything with them. Like there's people that it doesn't do it for them to collect what they want or buy what they want. And, like it just doesn't do it. Like part of the hobby now is there's a certain part of the hobby that's just, I break on Whatnot. That's just part of it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting when you start to see the nuance and the different verticals within the business. I think that's something else that we can tap into in the future because there's a lot of opportunity and you find your niche, you find your area of expertise, and then you maximize it. And I think that that's what I see from looking at other successful people in my life. When I look at other successful, they've found their niche, they've found their thing, and then they basically exploit it. And I think that that's important, and I think that's a part of a success strategy. So guys, we're going to close out today's show with a rapid fire. It's going to be how do you pay, where do you buy, and when do you sell? Okay. And I just want to do a rapid fire on those 3 questions. Kern, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Bubba, then I'll close it out. So Kern, where do you buy mostly?
Privately.
Where's your second purchase?
eBay.
Okay. Bubba, where do you buy mostly?
eBay.
eBay number 1. Number 2, where do you buy? Is there a backup?
I mean, I would have to say private's right there. I mean, Fanatics being a third, the Fanatics Golden being an alt being like a long distance 5.
Yep. So we buy mostly privately. And the only time I'll buy on eBay is like older Cal Ripken cards that you just can't find privately. All right. Number 2, how do you pay, Kern?
It really depends on the size of the card and the person I'm dealing with. But PayPal, wire for the most part. PayPal or wire. I don't do Venmo or anything like that because of the limits and stuff. But PayPal, Zelle, or wire. Just depends on the size of the card and who I'm dealing with.
Bubba?
So this was an important one for me. I actually brought this topic up, and I'm going to take a second to kind of tell you why. PayPal GNS, majority of the time. Rapid fire, but it's going to be a longer rapid fire here. PayPal GNS. You know why I pay goods and services? Multiple reasons. Number 1, I don't want to have to worry about it. I want to treat this like a business. Repeatable processes that I can repeat. If I don't know you, you can be the best guy in the world. I'm going GNS. And guess what? I get to put it on a credit card. That's paying me 2% back. So the 3%'s here. Yep. I have a 1% spread. I have the security of that. And that 2% that I get, I mean, it's nothing because I can build it into my deal. I can say, the price was going to, I'll just take the 3% in consideration. Then I pay with it with a credit card and I'm safe. So why the FF thing has become this craze? I can't stand FF unless I know you. So that's majority of the time how I pay. I mean, if I'm paying someone like Kern or Ham, somebody's a buddy of mine, then I'll pay them FF or wire. But outside of that, I want to be GNS all the time.
Yeah. We have kind of been more in the FF category because of the type of cards we've been doing. But I'll tell you, we've had a couple of situations where we've made payments. And one time I made a payment and all of a sudden it said like, Jing Yang Shong has received your money or something like that. And I'm just being honest. I'm not saying that derogatory, but it was like basically being sent overseas to some Chinese name. And I was like, I immediately called the bank and I froze the payment. and my bank had to, kind of unplug my account from PayPal. There's a lot of lessons to be learned in this whole thing about how you pay. Gary, the safest possible way is always GNS. And people who don't understand that when you're dealing with big buyers, like, go ahead and get over it, because when you're dealing with a big buyer and they're going to pay you GNS, just deal with it. You know what I mean? If you're at a show or something like that, maybe you can get around it. But like, I'm a big fan of that because I like the extra protection.
Well, in the GNS, here's the deal. If someone has heartburn for it, you pay the GNS fee and you build it into what your offer is.
Yeah,
if somebody's not wanting to accept GNS and you're paying for the fee, newsflash, there's a reason. Why are they not okay with receiving GNS funds that you're paying the fee? Explain me that.
Yep. Kern, what were you going to say?
I broke my cardinal rule and I looked at my phone during this podcast and I received some bad news. And I might cry and get off of here, but Edwin Diaz has signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Wow.
Look at Matt's face.
Edwin Diaz.
Yeah.
You're going to have to explain that one to me.
Edwin Diaz, the Mets closer, trumpets, he is signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I'm very upset about it.
They needed to get any better.
Hey,
they needed to get any better.
Bubba.
The Dodgers are the official enemy.
Bubba,
Yes,
we need to send Eric. We got to send him a package to his office of a Dodgers jersey and a Dodgers hat for Christmas.
I will slide.
You know what? I'm thinking about? I'm thinking of what? I'm thinking about this moment because I love Zahir Hope. I love Quintero. I love Sirota. I love Josu DePaula. I love them all. I'm thinking I'm just going to give up my Braves fandom and I'm just become a Dodgers fan. I'm thinking that's where I'm going to go. I love the prospects.
Come on, baby.
Just going to become a Dodgers fan. Kern, if we can't beat them, Kern, let's just join them. Let's just join them. No. They stole my Freddie Freeman. I'm just going to join them.
Get that much better when we beat them, right?
Kern literally cannot sum of this. All right, final rapid fire question of the episode, and we're going to wrap up. When you sell, where do you sell, and what determines when you sell? Double question. Where do you sell? What determines when you sell?
Privately, Kern. when I know it's time. It's just a gut. Yep. Just a gut, and it's privately.
Okay, private gut. Bubba.
Yeah, so public consignor, usually eBay or Fanatics, one of the two, depending on the value of the card. If I think it's a Fanatics card, it's got to be, I don't sell prospects on Fanatics or Golden, just for FYI. If it's a huge card like that, if it's a huge prospect card, honestly, I think the best place to sell it is private, and which is odd for me to say, but that's just usually the best market. That's where you lean in on your relationships and say, hey, I have this available, and someone will help you find a home for it. Fanatics does a phenomenal job on guys that are established, and eBay to me is king on anything like $10,000, $15,000 and under, in my opinion, in that range. But when to sell has really changed for me. It is a gut thing, but I think it's also, and I think this is key, where is that person at in their journey? Okay, I'm going to leave that. That's going to be the thought today. I bought this player because I thought they were going to be X. Okay, where are they at in that journey? We talk about being able to buy people and sell people 3 and 4 or 5 or 6 times in this hobby. Where you make a mistake is where you don't realize that they got to the next tier in that journey. And that could be pricing. That could be hype. That could be a promotion. That could be performance. It could be lack of performance. And that tier can't only go one way. Meaning, if you're only seeing this time to sell because they're going forward, there's also a time to sell because they're going backwards. Okay. And I don't think we talk about that enough.
Yep. All right. So for Ham House, it is definitely privately is the majority of our sales. And when, for me, it's just raw numbers. If we have any margin on there and it's a positive, I'm probably going to take it. I just, where else can I get 20, 30%?
How does Ham take a loss?
I don't.
Yes, you do.
I mean, when
you take a loss, how do you take it?
I literally look back. I just take it like immediately, like just boom, just go. Sell it privately, lose $100, $200. I did look back at that question. The largest card we lost on this year was a $300 loss on a card. That was the largest loss we've had. And I totaled it up. We've had 8 losses this year out of about 250 purchases.
Is there anybody better than the Ham, Kern? Is there anybody better than Ham for real? That's pretty damn impressive.
I'm being honest.
8 out of 250, dude. You're shooting like you're like Steph Curry of the freaking card industry.
Yeah. Well, that's just Again, you can't hold it long enough. It doesn't matter, you know? All right, boys. Well, listen, it is great being back with you guys. Everybody, thanks for bearing with us as we went through some stuff today. Hopefully it'll be helpful as you kind of plan for 26 for your own card hobby and look back on 25. Gentlemen, we'll be back next week with a little bit of a deep dive into the opportunities in the market right now. Who's the buy? Who we looking at? All right, boys and girls, thanks so much for watching another episode of the Sports Card CEO. We'll see you next week.